Hello and welcome to today's video about this lens, the TTArtisan AF 27mm 2.8. Before we get into the lens conversation, a little bit of first impressions, I thought I'd share a little bit of a backstory. So what's happened recently in the past year and a half or so, there's been an increased demand for small and compact and lightweight high quality cameras. So this has led to increased popularity in cameras such as the X100 and the GR3X from Ricoh, or any of the GR3s. So more on the GR3 in a future video. So hang on for that. That'll be coming up in a month or two. So more on that. Anyway, more about this lens. So what's happened, I think, is because of the high demand for those small compact cameras, they're out of stock just about everywhere. I know where I work, we're telling people if they order one today at Kenmore Camera, it'll take 4 to 6 months to get one. The Ricoh GR3, all the variations is similar. It's at least a couple months. We haven't had any open stock of either one of those cameras ever. So it's an interesting time for hunting for a small and compact camera. So what's happened, I think, is people are starting to think, well, hey, I already have maybe a small and compact camera. What if I put a small and compact lens on it? So that's led to increase in demand for lenses, these pancake type lenses on a high quality camera. So what's happening here now is lenses such as this and the Fujifilm XF 27mm RWR are also in high demand. And the Fujifilm is almost hard to get that lens as well. It's not in stock at our store or just about any place else I've looked online. So it's an interesting time to try and build your own small and compact camera kit, and this lens I think will be a great option for that. So before we get into my other thoughts on this lens, a couple thoughts and disclaimers and background here. So TTArtisan contacted me about a month ago to see if I was interested in this lens, and I said, of course, yes, that looks really interesting. An autofocus lens that's small, compact, and lower budget as far as price. So I said, yes. I said, please review my ethics statement on my website. They did that, and then they sent the lens on the way. So they've had no input into the content of this video. They have not seen this video before you all are. So I wanted to set the record straight on that. So we'll start this conversation about the lens talking about specs, build quality, and price. So let's take a look at the specs first. So I'm going to compare this lens specifically to the Fujinon XF 27mm f2.8 RWR. So here's the specs on the TTArtisan. The minimum focusing distance is a little over 13 inches. You have 6 elements and 5 groups for the lens organization, 7 aperture blades, a 39mm filter, 3.3 ounces at 94 grams and $149 US. This lens is also available in Sony E and Nikon F mount. So when we compare to the Fujinon 27mm pancake lens, here's what we get. A lot of similarity. Minimum focusing distance is similar. Construction is similar. Filter size is the same. The Fujinon is just a teeny bit lighter, but a whole lot more expensive at $400 US. So here's another difference between these two lenses. I have one of the TTArtisans. I don't have one of the Fujinon. They're, again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, really, really hard to find. But this one you can get. Speaking of getting one, I'll leave a link to the TTArtisan store. I know they have those in stock at the time of recording this video in early July 2024. That's the one place I have been able to find them in stock. I'll leave the link to that down below. It is an affiliate link, so thank you very much. Help support the channel, and it'll get you one of these lenses a little more quickly than you could otherwise. So a couple more notes about this lens. It is an all-metal construction. It's really high quality. Even though it's lightweight, it's got some density to it, so it feels solid. There is no weather resistance listed as part of the features here. And I didn't notice any gasket on the rear for as far as any weather resistance, weather sealing kind of properties. The focus ring is nice and smooth and well damped. The aperture ring has got a nice click to it. I'll talk more about that in a little bit about usability of the aperture ring. One note about using this lens is while it's on the camera, it's super small, as you can see. It's really, really tiny on my XH2S, which I really like. It's so discreet, especially compared to the 16 to 80 I'm usually using, which is quite a bit larger. But one thing that happens as a result of making this lens so small and compact is the aperture ring only has two ridges where you can grab to twist the ring. And for me, when I'm up to my eye, it's a little hard to get that in there. I kind of have to put my hand in front and rotate this way, and even kind of readjust the camera. So it's something to be aware of, moving the aperture ring while it's very, very smooth. Because of the way this design is with just two areas to move the aperture ring, it's a little awkward, at least for me. Again, your hand size, your ability to adjust the camera, and maybe you don't have a grip on your camera like this, might be easier, but just be aware of that. That's one thing I bumped up against a little bit, but since all these photographs you'll see are at f2.8, I didn't really move the aperture ring and need that, so it's just something to consider. And then again, all metal construction. One more piece of information about this lens is in regards to firmware updates, which happen via the included USB-C port on the end cap. So there's a USB-C port on the end cap. That's how you would do a firmware update on this lens. So make sure you don't throw out the rear cap for this lens. So let's talk about autofocus and image quality. In my experience, the autofocus works great. It was really fast. It's really quiet. I can't even really hear the autofocus motor working, but it works really quickly and accurately. I did a little bit of object and subject detection with it, and it worked really well in that mode. I didn't notice, at least in the short time I've used this lens so far, any missed photos because of autofocus, so that felt really, really nice. Image quality, we have to talk a little bit about that because when you make a teeny tiny lens like this, one of the things you're going to do is make some compromises. And the biggest compromise in image quality on this lens, and it's pretty common in most pancake lenses that are fast aperture, is you get a lot of vignetting. So especially at f2.8, there's a lot of it. It's noticeable kind of in everyday images. I'll show you some examples here of what it looks like in kind of a studio setting on a plain background, not a brick wall, but a plain background, and I'll show you what that looks like next. So as you can see, the progression from f2.8 to f16, there's still a little vignetting even at f16. In my experience, for me, that doesn't bother me. I usually add a little vignetting to my photos. I like that look. So it's far from optically perfect around vignetting, but for me, it fits the way I edit my photos anyway. I like that bit of personality. Of course, your preferences and mileage may vary. Regarding general image quality, here's a few sample images so you can take a look at things. All these photos were taken with the XH2S. At various apertures. So here's f2.8. Again, you can see a little bit the vignetting here going on, but again, I like that. Couple more thoughts about sharing some images with you. I have a slideshow of images at the end of this video. It's about 2 minutes. It's from a photo walk, street photography in downtown Bellevue. And then also all these images were made from raw files. And then I applied in Lightroom Classic, the Classic Chrome preset for that, and then I added my own edit on top of that. So that's what you're going to see in these images. So back to here real quick. I like this look. I like the somewhat muted tones here. It's the best way I can describe it. It's got rich colors, but it's in a way that I really like. It's not bright saturated, but it's still rich, if that makes sense. Again, the autofocus works really well here, focusing on this foreground element, this new sculpture in a hotel and condo complex in downtown Bellevue on a, you guessed it, rainy day. So it was sprinkling just a teeny bit while I was walking. I had no problems with this lens in that environment. In a lens like this, relatively short focal length at 27 millimeters at f2.8, you're not going to get a lot of background blur just because of the way physics works around depth of field. But I like the way the focus fall off works in here and the treatment of the bokeh. You can see here what it looks like focused on a flower up close, with the receding flowers getting more out of focus. As a more specific test of the appearance of the bokeh balls, the blurry light balls here, I just did manual focus, out of focus on this tree with light shining through. You do get a little bit of a cat's eye look around the edges. There's even a little bit of a swirly feel here. Again, I kind of like that. I like that little bit of personality. It's not optically perfect, but I think it adds some character in a nice way. One of the other things I like to look at in lenses, just because, again, it's a personality thing, is the sun stars. So here's at f11 with that same tree with the sun shining behind it. Here's what it looks like at f2.8. So there are noticeable sun stars with this lens, and they have, again, a kind of unique look and personality to them, especially at f2.8. You get a little bit of flaring and ghosting and some stuff going on here, but again, you know, I don't mind it. A little more studio setting to see what that sun star looks like with my phone flashlight, so you can get a better look at just the sun stars here at f11 as well as f2.8. So it kind of goes away at f2.8, but it's still got a little bit of a something going on there. So it's kind of fun, I think. So to summarize my thoughts on the image quality of the TTArtisan's AF 27mm f2.8, in a short phrase, I would use the phrase slightly moody with personality. It's a lot like me. So anyway, that's kind of a summary thought on that. So who would this lens be a good fit for? I think for anybody who's looking for a compact, lightweight, high quality images with a bit of personality. It's not optically perfect, as I mentioned, but who's looking for that lens to be really discreet on their camera and really easy to carry around. I think this is a great option. It's a lot of fun to use. I plan to have it in my bag with me all the time from here on out, just because it's so tiny and so easy to bring everywhere. And the image quality is amazing. The autofocus works really well. And at $149 US, it's a relatively low-cost lens, but it still has autofocus, which is kind of surprising at that price point. So I'm really, really enjoying using this lens and look forward to using it lots more in the future. So if you're on a waiting list for the Fujifilm X100 or the Ricoh GR3 and you already have a camera that this lens is available for, I'd highly recommend adding it to your list. Or if you already have one of the cameras, the Sony E-mount, the Nikon Z, or the Fujifilm, and you just want to add a small lens to your kit, this would be a great option to consider. If you have any questions you'd like to ask me about this lens, please leave them in the comments below, and I'd be glad to address those questions as best I'm able, or research the answer, or do some test photos, or figure it out. So please let me know in the comments below. Coming up next, you've got the slideshow of some images from a day of street photography with this lens, so I hope you enjoy that. Until I see you in a future video out there, I hope you stay safe, stay well, and have fun creating photos, and enjoy these photos.